All right, everybody, welcome back to a special episode of Hawk Droppings. I'm recording this at 5 p.m. on Thursday, April 25th. Earlier today, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments relative to Donald Trump's claims for presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. I am extremely angry right now. I am very agitated. I've been trying to regulate my nervous system for the last hour to varying degrees of success. It may not be the most star-spangled awesome idea for me to record a podcast right now, but I'm calling this episode the We're Fucked Supreme Court Edition, because that's what happened today. That's what happened today. We have known for the last several years that this Supreme Court is unimaginably corrupt. And my God, the 5 male conservative justices today took away all doubt. They took away all doubt that anyone could have in that statement that the John Roberts Supreme Court in 2024 is possibly the most corrupt institution that we have currently in the United States of America at the federal level. I had always kind of clung to the fact that John Roberts, the Chief Justice, is very much an institutionalist. He cares about the legacy of the court as an institution. He cares deeply about the legacy of his court. That is the reason why he swatted down and sided with liberal justices on the court so many times in refusing to strike down Obamacare, because he didn't want that to be his legacy. Well, his concerns about his legacy appear to have evaporated entirely over 2 or 3 recent cases that the court has heard relative to the insurrection, relative to Donald Trump's candidacy, culminating in today. The 5 male justices on the court today, Roberts, Thomas, Alito, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, rather than view what Donald Trump did to the 2020 election and trying to overturn the 2020 election and the insurrection at the Capitol, rather than view that as the biggest threat to American democracy now, those 5 justices today expressed their view that the biggest threat to American democracy is that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for any of that at all. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. One of the voices of reason on the court today was Justice Amy Coney Barrett, the newest justice, the Handmaid's Tale justice. She was trying to find middle ground. The 5 male conservatives, I mean, Kavanaugh basically said he wants to throw out Jack Smith's entire prosecution of Donald Trump. And the other 4 male justices basically agreed with him. We are fucked. And the Supreme Court is corrupt. I didn't think that this court could do anything to shock me more than overturn Roe versus Wade. I was wrong. Every Supreme Court expert that I listen to, that I follow, all of the legal experts that I listen to and follow, to a person, believed that one of the main reasons why this court agreed to hear oral arguments on this question was so that they could emphatically side on the right side of this issue in what would probably be a 7-2 decision completely hammering Donald Trump because Alito and Thomas are always on the wrong side of everything. And it's like, I've had a busy day today. I've got movers coming tomorrow. I've had a ridiculous amount of stuff going on. But it's like, as I've been working, I've been reading commentators. I've been reading these people who I trust, who I follow, who have experience, who have themselves argued cases before this court. And every one of them was just like, oh man, I was pretty naive here. We're fucked, kids. We're fucked. I mean, I said in the TikTok earlier today that our institutions were never going to save us. I have always believed that it was always going to be up to us, the voting public, the electorate, to save ourselves and to save any semblance of democratic rule in the United States of America in the current environment. I've believed that for years. I never, ever, ever in a million years envisioned it would get this bad as what happened today in the United States Supreme Court from 5 men. I never, even after the last 9 years, I never would have envisioned what happened today in the court. Never would have envisioned it. But it's like, I read one thing by Josh Marshall. People ask me all the time, what websites do you follow? What websites do you subscribe to? I subscribe to Talking Points Memo. It's run by a guy named Josh Marshall. I've been a subscriber to that website for 20 years. Incredible news reporting, just incredible reporters. It's a great site. He's an amazing commentator. And, you know, he wrote this, you know, short little 4 or 5 paragraph thing where he was like me. He was like, he was like, you know, sure, the Roberts Court is partisan, but there's a threshold level of belief in the rule of law and a belief that Justice Roberts would always preserve the integrity of the institution, the legacy of the institution, and his legacy for his court as Chief Justice. Gone. He balled that shit up and threw it in the trash can today with a level of enthusiasm I've never seen from him. And Josh Marshall wrote the following: everything comes into conceptual alignment if we understand this court's corruption. Corrupt in its construction, corrupt in its jurisprudence, venally corrupt as well, though that is the least of its problems. Where we are where we should know that we are. The Roberts Court is a corrupt institution which operates in concert with and on behalf of the Republican Party. And in 2024, that means with and on behalf of Donald Trump. And the 5 conservative male justices today, I mean, I had hope for this court. I had hope for this court following the 2020 election. They refused to get into any of Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani's bullshit election fraud cases. You know, when he got indicted on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, they refused to hear his bullshit arguments about the Presidential Records Act. And, you know, it's like, kind of figured they'd help Trump out a little bit here and there, but they would preserve democracy in the United States of America. I mean, it's like we've known forever that the conservative justices on this court are political hacks. I really didn't see being anti-democratic and just flat fucking lawless as applying to them as well. But that's what we saw today. That's what we saw. The 5 male justices were incredibly aggressive towards Michael Dreeben, who is an appellate lawyer who's working with Jack Smith, who has argued 150 cases before the Supreme Court. Every justice knows him. He's well respected. And the 5 male conservative justices went after him like he was a fucking first-year law student who'd never done anything of any consequence in his life. They were disrespectful. They were combative. They were condescending. They were dismissive. For Donald Trump. For Donald Trump. And it's like the 5 male justices believe that it is more destabilizing to our democracy in 2024 that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for what he did while he was president than what he did while he was president. And they kept saying, well, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about the future. We're thinking about future presidents. Fuck you. Think about this. Think about this one. I'm sorry. I know it makes my dad cranky when I swear and use the F word, but I'm cranky. I'm cranky. Even for this court, I am profoundly disappointed and I am disgusted in what they did today. I mean, Sam Alito did exactly what he does. Clarence Thomas, whose wife is a goddamn co-conspirator and part of the plot to overturn the 2020 election, sending emails to various states saying, we know that you will do the right thing and find it in your heart to follow God and put forth slates of fake electors and overturn the results of the election in your state, apparently just as God wants, because God gives two shits who the president of the United States is. I mean, these people believe that God helps them find parking spaces. Dude slept through the Holocaust, 250 years of slavery, and the slaughter of I don't know how many tens of millions of Native Americans, but God's going to help them find a parking spot. He hasn't lifted a goddamn finger to help the 15,000 kids who've been murdered in Gaza. But yeah, he's going to help you find a parking spot. Oh, God, if I don't make jokes and laugh, I'm just going to fall over and curl up in a ball on the floor underneath my desk and start shaking. Oh, fuck these people, man. God. I mean, we saw a little bit of it. We saw a little bit of it in the case. I think it was Trump v. Anderson, the Colorado Supreme Court removing Trump from the ballot. I never expected in a million years that to be a unanimous decision coming down on the side of Donald Trump, but it was. I mean, it wasn't unanimous, but it was. It was unanimous in the holding, not in the way they got there. And you know, 2 weeks ago, they heard a case involving a certain statute that a bunch of the insurrectionists have been sentenced under, and these same conservative justices were very hostile to that, while refusing to discuss what these fucking assholes actually did that day at the Capitol. 140, 150 cops beaten, 5 people dead, 1 police officer dead, 3 more took their own lives in the days following January 6th. And, you know, and it's like on this issue of immunity, you know, the trial judge in this case, Judge Tanya Chutkan, wrote an extremely eloquent and powerful, very well written, very well researched smackdown of Donald Trump's claims of presidential immunity, which was unanimously affirmed by a 3-judge panel of Republican appointed judges at the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. The DC Circuit Court of Appeals opinions are regularly just ratified out of hand by the United States Supreme Court. Not today. Not today. Because Roberts, Gorsuch, Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh think the much bigger threat is that Donald Trump is being prosecuted at all. Alito, he made the argument that having this concept of presidential immunity will actually assist with the transfer of power, because a president who's leaving office won't have to worry that the incoming president is going to prosecute him or her. Completely ignoring what has actually happened. These guys shove so many goddamn outlandish hypotheticals up their own asses and then smell their own rosy, flowery farts of intelligentsia and get high off of, oh my God. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And Sonia Sotomayor fortunately came back in and said, stable democratic society needs good faith of public officials. That good faith assumes that they will follow the law. But sometimes democracies can potentially fail. And she concluded with, in the end, if ours fails completely, it's because we destroyed our own democracy ourselves, isn't it? Kavanaugh kept quoting from some dissent from Scalia about how independent counsels are unconstitutional. Kavanaugh got his start working for special counsel, independent counsel Kenneth Starr, investigating Bill Clinton. Didn't think it was unconstitutional back then, did you, Brett? Fucking Brett. But it was the four women on the court today, including Amy Coney Barrett, who were pumping the brakes pretty hard. But the five guys don't think Donald Trump should be being prosecuted at all. At all. The shameless maximalist approach should have drawn anger from the conservative justices. That's after Justice Sotomayor said, is the president immune from prosecution if he orders the military to assassinate a political rival? Donald Trump's attorney said yes, though it depends on the circumstances. Could the president order the military to stage a coup? Donald Trump's attorney said yes, but it depends on the circumstances. And she was like, well, it sounds like under your test, it's an official act, depending on the circumstances, but it sure does sound bad, doesn't it? And that shameless, maximalist, no brakes approach should have offended conservative judges, but it didn't. It turns out that Trump's attorney had calibrated his arguments perfectly for the five male justices. And Michael Dreeben, arguing on behalf of Jack Smith, prosecution, basically tried to make the argument that most prosecutors act in good faith. And he was mocked for saying that by Justices Alito and Roberts. Do you know what that is? That is Donald Trump talking about the deep state. His voice, his words coming through these five male justices on the United States Supreme Court. They basically said deep state. The conservative justices are so in love with their own voices and so convinced of their own rectitude that they monologued about how improper it was for Michael Dreeben to keep talking about the facts of this case as opposed to the abstract principles at play in the future. And it's like we're working on new lighting, so I'm very much aware that this is going on right now. I can't do anything about it right now. I'm talking about the future, declared Brett Kavanaugh, pitching himself not as Trump's human shield, but as a principled defender of the treasured constitutional right of all presidents to do crime. Kavanaugh eventually landed on the proposition that prosecutors may charge presidents only under criminal statutes that explicitly state that they can be applied to the president of the United States, which, as Justice Sotomayor pointed out, would mean none. 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 The liberal justices tried their best to make the case that justice required denying Trump's sweeping immunity claim. They got very little traction. I I'm stunned. I'm in shock. I'm stunned at what happened today. I mean, at a minimum, this trial is going to be pushed into 2025, if not beyond. And in the meantime, Donald Trump could be reelected, and then it'll never go to trial. This case will never go to trial. But the court has signaled that nothing Trump did was all that serious, and that the threat he may pose is not worth reining in. The real threat the 5 male conservative justices saw today is the threat that Trump himself shouts from the rooftops. The deep state, witch hunts, partisan Biden prosecutors. What do they think Donald Trump is going to do to them? What does Trump think he's going to do to the Supreme Court if he gets reelected? Fuck these guys, man. This episode's a little shorter than normal. It's about the length of a Coffee with Hawk episode. I'm doing it as a Hawk droppings because I want everybody to hear it. I'm going to go for a walk in the woods. And pray for everybody in this country who doesn't look like me. Bad day today, guys. Bad day.